Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We'll continue where we left the last time. We were discussing network design, and since this is a very important and a little complicated chapter of under supply chain management, we are going to do a bit of a recap. Okay, and it's extremely important. The reason behind, if you remember, that every company, and primarily companies who are working in a very big scale, manufacturing companies, big manufacturing companies. If you go back a little and remember the chapter that we had discussed on logistics system, and what did we discuss in logistics system? That every company has their own logistics system, which comprises of a number of facilities. Like, so you have a company here, a manufacturing company, and the company has a number of facilities, and the role of the facilities, if you remember, we had discussed there can be multiple role, the different facilities play different roles. So, one facility can be a plant, a production plant, another facility can be a distribution or a warehouse where you store goods, another facility can just be an R&D center, another facility can be used for terminal, for transportation, for logistics purpose, another facility may be used for only packaging. So, and all these facilities are connected to each other, and you have the company headquarters or the company in between at the center, and these facilities not necessarily are located in the same place or the same region. So, they may be at different regions. The warehouse can be at one part of the country, whereas the plant can be somewhere else. The distribution center or the central distribution center can be somewhere else. There are companies who have regional distribution centers, regional warehouses. There are companies, and particularly after this GST, companies tend to have bigger warehouses and at a one particular place, rather than having too many centers scattered all over the country. Similarly, with packaging, and there are number of other functions that these facilities play. So, basically a company has a network of facilities. Now, what is the chapter? The chapter is network design. This is a network. How do the companies design their network? What are the factors that influence or determine where these facilities would be located? There are certain parameters that influence or that determine the location, the facility location. Broadly, if you remember, we discussed last time, what are connected to the facilities. One is the role that a facility play. As we discussed, a facility, it plays different roles. It may be a production unit, it can be a warehouse, it can be a packaging center, it can be a whatever. Number two, where would it be located? So, facility or a unit. Number three, what would be the capacity of that facility? And number four, supplier and customer. How far or how close would the facility be from a supplier, and how close or how far it will be from a customer? When you say customer, we call it the market. So, broadly, a company decides its network designing policy based on these four areas: what role it would play, what would be the capacity, it could be the production capacity, it could be the storage capacity. When it comes to logistics, how many shipment it can move, it can dispatch, it can load, unload, how many fleet it can accommodate, etc., etc. So, different facility, and if I have decided to build a facility at a particular place, how close would it be from the supplier and how close or far would it be from the market. Now, there are several factors which determine the location. Suppose if I have to build a facility, if I have to locate a facility at a particular point A, I should have valid reason for doing that. So, there are certain parameters that I should satisfy or I should consider before I finally decide to have my facility or my unit or my plant at that particular location. So, what are these factors? What are these factors that determine positioning or establishing a particular unit or a plant or a facility at a particular location? Let us now go back to our presentation slide. We did cover in the earlier section, we did go through a few slides, and we also gave you a mathematical derivation of how of certain models of which helps us in deciding the network decision system. But we are going to do it once again, because as I said, it is a very, very significant and critical part of supply chain. We cannot have facility anywhere as we want to. Different companies who are in different business, who are producing different kinds of products, will have different facilities at different locations, because those are the locations which provide certain benefits. So, let us see what factors influence a particular company. Let us go back to the slide. So, one is the strategic role. What is the strategy of the company? The strategic decisions we have discussed earlier also, it is taken at a very senior level, whether we are going to have the facility within the country or we are going to have an offshore facility, what will be the cost. So, there are different strategic roles that influence network decision level at the strategic level. What are the other factors? Technological factors. If a company, if a plant requires sufficient amount of technology, application of technology, before selecting a particular location, one has to see, the company has to see whether technology benefits are sufficiently available in that particular location. Macroeconomic factors, what are the benefits of tariffs and taxes, whether there are incentives, whether that particular country. Now, when we say a particular region, it may not be within the country, it may be an overseas destination, and a company would definitely see whether that particular country has a favorable exchange rate. If it does not have a favorable exchange rate, he would rather not establish the plant there, because it is going to, they are going to incur more cost than it would if he would have set the plant in his own country. Political, we did discuss last time, every company would like to set up their facility, plant in locations where there is a stable government, where the process, the mandates, the rules, they do not change frequently. Because if such rules of doing business changes frequently in a country, it is very difficult. The business process becomes very, very unstable. The infrastructure, whether there are sites, the lands, the labors, whether the transportation channels, whether local utility services are easily available. So, these are few of the factors. Let us go to the next slide to see the other factors. Competitive, we discussed. Positive externalities, customer response time and local presence. Now, by positive externalities, we gave you an example. Suppose an automobile company wants to set up a plant. Now, for instance, a company which is based out of Japan wants to set up their manufacturing unit in India, can always look at a location where an automobile plant already exists. An automobile manufacturing plant already exists. Why? Because an automobile industry use a lot of components. So, he need a large supplier base, a decently large supplier base. Now, if he selects a location where there is no supplier base at all, it would take quite some time for that particular company to create that supplier base. Now, if you already have an existing company for some time and you would have created a supplier base, so it is beneficial for the new company to come and utilize the existing supplier base without wasting any time at all. So, though they are two companies in the same business and in reality they may be competitors to each other, but would definitely enjoy these positive externalities. These are called positive externalities. We will go and see the other factors. We will not discuss this graph at this point of time. Logistics and facility cost, we did discuss. Among the logistics cost, you have the inventory cost, you have the transportation cost, you have the facility setup cost, that is the initial cost, and also the operating cost. Once you have set up the facility, there are certain costs involved to operate. So, these are daily expenditures, these are regular and recurring expenditure. So, selection will also take into account locations where logistics and facility costs are reasonably economical and not too high, because that is going to affect the profitability of that particular company. Now, we are discussing these factors which influence the network decision of a company. Now, all these factors are not considered at one point of time, at one single go. We will come to a stage and we will discuss there are different phases. So, all these factors, they are clustered and decisions are taken on these factors at different phases based on priorities, based on the sequence. First, let us cover all the factors which should be considered while setting up. You have the socio-economic factors, the lifestyle, you have the customer response, the exchange rate, the demand risk, if a country has a volatile demand or it has a stable demand or not. Tariffs and tax incentives we have already discussed. Freight and fuel cost positive externalities is basically the summary of whatever we have discussed last time, except for tariffs and tax incentives that we are going to discuss further. And we did discuss, and I did mention last time very briefly, there are developing countries like India. India is, there is a debate whether it is a developing country, it is almost a developed country or not, but there are certain countries which are in the process of being developed. They generally invite overseas companies, strong companies, to come and do business from their country, set up their offices in their country, thus creating lot of job opportunities. Now, in order to do that, why should a company, overseas company, a strong company would come and set up? In the last 20 years, you would have seen, all of us have seen that many major and strong companies, overseas companies have come. People from, particularly from the states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh would have seen several IT companies, several banking institutions. They have all come and set up their business in India, and one of the reasons were the local government, the central and the state government provided them some attractive tax benefits and tariffs in terms of import duties, in terms of sales tax, in terms of whatever. So, all these tariffs, so there has been a lot of relaxation in terms of these tariffs and taxes which are generally imposed on a foreign company when they come and do business over here, relaxation. Let us go to, we are not going to discuss this. This is something that we are going to discuss, and I did mention that the decision to set up a business or a plant is not taken in a single period or in a single phase. Broadly, they are taken in 4 different phases and in sequence. So, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and phase 4. Now, earlier we have just discussed certain factors that influence the decision making process. So, all these factors are segregated and clustered in different phases. That means, certain factors, decision on certain factors are taken in phase 1, decision on certain factors are taken on phase 2, decision on certain factors are taken on phase 3, and decisions on certain factors are taken in phase 4. We go back to the slide and our presentation to see which all factors are decided in phase 1, what all factors are decided in phase 2, what all factors are considered in phase 3, and which all factors. So, overall we have discussed 14 factors broadly: logistics cost, facility cost, exchange rate, tariffs, positive externalities, labor cost, different factors, socio-economic factors, macroeconomic factors, etc. So, we will see in the slide, in the presentation, which all factors, how these factors are distributed in the different phases. So, in the first phase, what does the company decide? Which all areas that the company take decisions on in phase 1? So, in phase 1, the company generally takes the broad supply chain decisions, not very specific, the bigger objectives, the bigger goals, the broader picture. They decide the stage of the supply chain, whether they are going to insource or outsource, what all activities they are going to do in-house, what all activities they are going to outsource. For instance, if a company has expertise in carrying out logistics service by themselves, it would outsource the logistics services. If a company does not have expertise in managing the IT services, it would outsource the IT services. So, this is the decisions taken at phase 1. They analyze what is the customer needs, what does the customer need, does their product satisfy these customer needs, what are their capabilities, what are the company's capabilities, what are the global evolution, what are the expected changes that may occur in the supply chain, and the company has to have a backup. They may have a plan B, whatever. They should be ready for any changes that may happen in the supply chain. Should they build? Should they own their own facility? Should they build their own facility? Or if it is a short term project, for instance, company has different projects. If they have a short term project, they also might look at leasing out, taking facilities on lease. They will not invest in building their own infrastructure. So, these are the decisions which are taken in phase 1. I repeat, supply chain decisions, stages of supply chain, insourcing, outsourcing, competitive strategy, customer needs, capabilities, own capabilities, global evolution, capital availability, and build or lease. Yes, one factor, very important factor I missed out, was capital availability. Where would the capital come from in setting up the plant? There is a huge amount of capital required, initial investments required. Where would be the source? Is the company going to use its own capital, or are they going to raise money, or are they going to borrow it from other financial institutions? So, this is a very important decision which is taken in phase 1 of network designing process. Let us go to the factors that are taken in phase 2. Let us see the slide. So, what are the decisions? What are the areas? Basically, the company selects a particular region in phase 2. In a particular country, or in the globe, in the world as a whole, they would select either a particular country or a part of the continent, maybe the South Asia, maybe Southeast Asia, whatever. the regions where facilities to be located, considering regional demand. So, now in phase 2, what are the factors which are being considered? What are the factors that determine a particular region to be selected? Regional demand, tariffs, economies of scale, aggregate factor cost, what will be the role of the facility, what can be the capacity of that facility, what is the demand that the company is anticipating, what is the volume, what is the business they are anticipating, the forecasted sales. Is there any demand risk? Is there an exchange risk? If they select a particular region, if they select a particular country, they would definitely want to see the country's performance, the company's history in terms of exchange rate. Has the exchange rate of a country fluctuated too much? Is the exchange rate too high? Generally, when we talk of exchange rate, we compare it vis-a-vis US dollars. So, companies would like to see how fluctuating that exchange rate has been, because let me tell you, too much of a fluctuation affects the company's flow of business. So, as you see, these are the factors which are considered while selecting a region, not a specific location, a region. A company selects a region. In phase 3, within that region, once they have selected a particular region, within that particular region they select certain sites, they shortlist certain probable sites where the plant can be, where the plant is to be established, built, set up, and within that forecasted, within that shortlisted sites different, they would decide a specific site at phase 4 where the plant or the facility would be established. But before we do that, before we go to phase 4, we now have to see what all factors are considered in phase 3. Let us go. Let us see the presentation. So, phase 2 continued. Political regional tariffs, local production tax incentives, export import restrictions or export import flexibility, whether that particular country offers favorable export and import business processes. If the political scenario is stable, if the regional tariffs are favorable to the company, if that particular region of the country is offering favorable tax benefits. Based on that, the company can either set up facility in each region, in each of the regions that they decide, or consolidate the plants in only few selected regions. We discussed the capacitated plant location problem. I would like to again go through the capacitated plant location problem, since it is extremely important. This model takes into consideration the company's cost and its cost of transportation from its plant to the customer. We can use let us see the slide in the slide itself rather than drawing it on the board. We have n as the number of potential locations. The company is not decided, these are only the potential locations. Now, based on this model, the company would actually decide which location is to be selected. M are the number of markets. DI is the annual demand, DJ rather is the annual demand of market J. KI is the capacity of plant I. FI is the annualized fixed cost of keeping factory I opened. Cij is the cost of producing and shipping one unit from factory I to market J, and Xij is the quantity shipped from plant site I to customer J. Let us keep it simple. Let us come to the board now. So, what are we saying? I will explain you. Number of plants, N is the number of potential location or potential locations. I will use the same units so that it is not confusing for you. M is the number of markets, right? DI or DJ is the demand from market J. KI is the capacity of plant I. How many plants are there? N number of plants are there. And how many markets are there? There are M number of markets. Fi is the fixed cost of plant I, fixed cost. If the plant is running, then the plant would incur a fixed cost of Fi. Okay. Now, here you have a market I, sorry, you have a plant. Why I am going back from the slide to the board, so that you understand. I is the plant and J is the market. J is any market between how many markets are there? M markets. So, J can be either the first or the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth, etc., up to the mth market, and I is any plant, any of the n number of plants. It can be the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc., up to the nth plant. So, what is the, you have to choose a location. You have to, so the responsibility of the company is to carry material from I to J. That is the business. They are producing certain items, materials, products at plant I, and they have to take that product to market J for the consumer to consume those products. Simple. In the process, they are incurring two types of cost. One is the fixed cost, plus they are also incurring the transportation cost. If the plant is open, whether there is any production or not, this fixed cost will always remain. Now, transportation cost depends upon how many items are being moved and what is the cost of moving that items, correct? If I am moving 100 items at 10 rupees per item, what is my cost? 100 into 10, 1000 rupees, simple. So, here we are not going to take any absolute value, any numerical figure. We are saying let X I J be the quantity moved from plant I to market J. So, X I to J, X amount is being moved from plant I to market J. That is the quantity that is moving. Now, there must be a cost, there must be a price. Let Cij be the cost of moving 1 unit of the item product from plant I to market J. This is called capacitated plant capacitated model. Right. So, cost of moving 1 into the item is rupees 10, this is rupees 10 from moving from my plant at I to market J. But what is the quantity I am moving? I am moving Xij. So, what is the total cost? Unitary method Xij into Cij, that is the total cost of moving from a plant I to plant J. This is the total cost. This is the cost from moving from ith plant to jth market, right. So, we do not have one plant, we have number of plants, and we do not have one market, we have number of markets. How many markets we have? We have m number of markets. So, have a look at this first, because I am going to rub it off and we are going to derive. So, where should I locate my plant? So, this is my total cost, this is my total cost, fixed plus transportation. I am going to set up my plant where both the costs are minimum, are lowest, where is the total cost is minimum, right, subject to so, I will come to the derivation now. So, I have total cost fixed plus transportation. So, what is the fixed cost? So, total cost is fixed cost F I is equal to 1 to n. This implies F1 fixed cost of plant 1 plus fixed cost of plant 2 plus fixed cost of plant 3 right up to fixed cost of plant n. That means, this is the sum of all the fixed costs put together for all the plants. I can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 anything, depending upon how many potential locations I have selected. So, this is the total fixed cost. Now, plus the transportation cost. What is the transportation cost? Xij into Cij. From the ith plant to the jth market. From any of so the total cost, what is the total transportation cost? I do not have just one plant or one market. I may have, in that case I will be 1, j will be 1. So, in that case x into c, but here we are talking of number of potential plant I to the number of markets, and how many markets I have? M. So, material moved from ith plant to jth into cost incurred for moving that material, and the total cost is this. And I am going to select my facility where this is minimum. Subject to, how much material I am moving? Xij. What is the total quantity of material I am moving? This is the total quantity of material I am moving from all the plants to all the markets. Now, there is a certain demand in the market. There is a certain demand in the market. What is the demand? We have discussed earlier. This material that I am moving should satisfy the total demand of all the M markets. So, the market has a demand. Unless and until this demand, the volume that I am sending does not match the demand, I am not meeting the demand. So, I have to meet the demand. So, this total cost, you have to minimize the total cost subject to this. Subject to number 1 and number 2 what? Now, this is the total quantity I have to move, because that is equal to demand. Now, is my plant capable of producing this much of material? Then only I can move this much of material, right? Now, suppose I am producing bags. Listen carefully. I am producing bags, whatever bags it may be, for official purpose, for the school purpose, for domestic purpose. So, I am in the business of manufacturing bags. Hypothetically think there is just one market where I have to sell bags. So, the market needs 100 bags. That is the total demand of the market. They need 100 bags. So, that is dj. Or if there are 5 markets, so j is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, d1 plus d2 plus d3 plus d4 plus d5 is 100. So, all the 5 markets put together, they require 100 bags. So, how many bags should I move from my plant to the market? 100 only. If I move 90, I am short of demand. Even if I move 95, 96, 99, I am unable to meet the demand, I am losing money. So, this has to be also 100. Now, how can I move 100 bags if my plant, if my factory is unable to produce 100? So, first my factory should be in a position, my plant should be in a position to produce 100 bags, then only I will be able to satisfy the demand of the market. So, the other subject to is I is equal to 1 to n and j is equal to 1 to m x I j. This is the total material I am shifting. This has to be less than. Now, if the demand is 100, how much should the plant produce? 100 only or less than 100? It should always be more than 100. It should be always, to be on the safe side, the plant should have the capacity of producing more than what the market demands. That is always the case, even On a simpler note, when we make food in our house, and if there are 5 people, we produce or we make or we cook a little more than what those 5 people would demand, because in case you never know. So, this has to be less than I. Now, what is this Ki? Ki is the capacity of plant I. How many plants we have? End plants. So, Ki means K1 plus K2 plus. So, all plants put together should be in a position to produce those 100 bags. So, all plants put together should be in a position to produce more than what the market demands, that is Dj, which is also equal to the quantity I am sending from plant I to plant J. As simple as that. We will upload this particular chapter within this week, and I would expect all of you to have to study this. Very interesting. Supply chain is all about knowing the business. Any business you do, any business you see, any company that you work with, one has to understand the supply chain of the company, how the business happens. Whether you work in the marketing, in HR, or in logistics, in transportation or R&D, you should know how that particular company does business, right from the supplier to the market. And this is one very important part of network designing. We will end here. We have a long weekend. I wish you all the best. A very happy Independence Day to all of you. And I am going to see you in a week's time, because I will be traveling next week. So, it is unlikely that I do any more session in the next week, but I will be soon back to complete, because we have already completed about 45 sessions and we are left with about 20-25 sessions, which we should be able to complete by the end of this month, or maximum by mid of September. Till such time, I meet you next time. Thank you and goodbye.